free flowing journaling is like is like so great for anxious people, because I'm just like, it's a brain dump. People who are reading a Kindle are still reading. People who are listening to audiobooks are still taking in that information. And I think that's the same with journaling. It's like writing in your notes app is still journaling. Sometimes I almost feel sad for people who haven't documented their life, not even just through journaling, but through any means. Because I'm like, yeah, like you have memories, but like your memories aren't always as sound as you think they are, and you can't remember everything, unless it's been recalled.
Maybe moving it on to your interactions with other people, to perhaps your interactions with yourself. We could speak about journaling for a little bit. Journaling is something that Ollie and I both have done in the past and have found quite helpful, and I think it's a good way of exploring the self. Not to sound pedantic, but you also have mentioned the kind of this difference between free journaling and prompted journaling. I was wondering if you could maybe just expand on the whole concept in general.
I'm so glad you guys like journaling. When did you start doing it? Were you just like, this sounds great? Or was it just like you kept a diary as a kid?
I was partly just a therapist told me to do it. And I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago when I started doing it occasionally. It's a habit that one kind of needs to keep, because it's time consuming. But maybe Ollie can also expand on his experience.
Yeah, I tried it probably a couple times in the last few years, and it never really stuck. I don't think I really knew how to do it, and I also found speaking to myself weird at the beginning, and maybe there was kind of an element of internalized masculinity of like, my sister did it and I was like, I'm not just going to sit down and write about my feelings. But then I think over the course of this year I really begun, and then once you get into a flow, it's actually such a nice thing to do. So yeah, I'd say probably in the last year, but I've never tried prompted journaling, so maybe you could talk about that a bit.
Yeah, honestly, I love free flowing journaling. That's kind of my favorite, but like, you're right, you have to get into it. Like, you have to build the habit, and you also have to take note of the fact that you feel great afterwards. Like, I always make sure I remember that really clearly. I'm like, wow, don't I feel amazing? I should remind myself of that more often than I do. But yeah, so prompted versus free flowing journaling. Prompted journaling is basically like someone else is doing the thinking for you about what you're going to write about. And if you are just like new to journaling, I think that's great, because sometimes it takes so much mental energy to have to like not even just write, but to come up with the topics. And if you're like someone who's like not naturally great at like self-expression, it's like, oh my, you're right. It's like, what do I write about? Like, do I write about my day? Do I say like, dear diary? And if you think about the ways that we're typically like used to writing, it's like in response to a requirement, right? You write a report for school, you write an email response, like there is a prompt there. So I find that it's really, really good. And you can find a lot online. Like, there's so many creators who do like amazing journal prompts. Free flowing journaling, I think it's not even like, you just kind of got to find what works for you. Free flowing journaling is like is like so great for anxious people, because I'm just like, it's a brain dump, right? Like, that's what I really find of like, I'm going to talk about all these things that are bothering me, and something written on a page is always a problem halved. Then there's also things like visual journaling, which I love, like that I have friends that do that. I think also like journaling is not just contained to a pen on paper. Like, people who are reading a Kindle are still reading. People who are listening to audiobooks are still taking in that information. And I think that's the same with journaling. It's like writing in your notes app is still journaling. To me, I honestly think that like writing long-winded Instagram captions is still journaling. Like, it is a form of like expressing something that maybe you find hard to verbalize, or that you wouldn't otherwise verbalize if it wasn't in written form. And maybe some people come at me like that and be like, I'm sorry, an Instagram caption is not a journal entry. But besides the format, like, it's the same premise, you know?
I guess it kind of depends on how you take your Instagram. My Instagram captions are maybe like 3 words maximum. So
yeah, I'm not one for
much.
the long-winded ones. I'm like, I'm not a big fan of that, because I'm like, someone's going to eventually read that caption at some point. So,
want your head and hair to feel cool and clean? Been going to extreme measures to cool your head off? Then get yourself a Manscaped. Don't be like Ollie and take your scalp from zero to hero with the new scalp buffer now. Use the discount code LOAF to get your 20% off.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for me, if I had to summarize what I thought like the benefits of journaling were for me is first of all, I think when they're just in your head, you can think kind of ridiculous things and allow yourself to think them. And once you write them out and try and put them in what's more kind of a logical structure than thought, you kind of realize, no, this is actually a stupid thing to think. And maybe the second thing for me would be like, I don't know how to explain it. I guess often we think we're acting for a certain reason, or we think we're reacting in a certain way for a certain reason. And I think journaling can help you to unpick what's actually driving you. So that would be kind of what I would say has helped me. But for people who are thinking about trying journaling, or for people who you would want to encourage to journal, what are the benefits that you would say that it brings you, or that it can bring people?
I love what you said. I think if you're someone who is anxious, it like can make things feel very logical, and you're like, it's kind of like your mind is playing games with you, and you like put a brick wall in front of it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, run into this. Like, I've just out-logicked you. I've out-thought my brain by writing it down. Like, it's like, you know, that's like the anxious thoughts terrain. And once you put them on a piece of paper, like they can't operate anymore. I also think that like, it's so great. And this is like a random side thing, but for just like memory keeping, and just for like keeping track of your life and keeping track of your growth. And I really like, sometimes I almost feel sad for people who haven't documented their life, not even just through journaling, but through any means. Cause I'm like, yeah, like you have memories, but like your memories aren't always as sound as you think they are. They're not always as permanent or as objective. Whereas like you have this, and you can't remember everything, you know, unless it's been recalled. And I just think that like having something like a journal, having something like a diary, like again, an Instagram or anything like that is like a great way to just be like, okay, that was me, and that's who I was then, and this is who I am now. And like, wow, that's just so cool, of like that change and that transformation and that evolution, giving yourself credit for it, being able to like reminisce. It's actually quite a gift in many ways. I don't know if you found that though, because I think sometimes like if you're someone who only writes during like mental health periods of like poor mental health, it's like, God, this is super down. This is just like a diary of misery. But again, sometimes nice. Loneliness is like hunger. All it is actually a social cue. I need connection. And all that loneliness is a little alarm bell in your head saying, time to reach out, time to reconnect, time to maybe find new friends.
Jemma Sbeg is someone everyone in their 20s needs.
Point, you say friendship is more important than romantic relationships in your 20s, or can be more important.
If friendships go to the wayside because of a romantic relationship, it can be actually quite detrimental to a person's ability to grow into a well-rounded person. It's like consuming just one media source.
Just try something and realize that just because you have invested in it to begin with doesn't mean that that's going to be the rest of your life.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that short clip of our interview with Jemma Sbeg. If you want to see the full interview, you can click right here. But more importantly, if there's anything you disagree with, please leave a comment. We reply to all comments, and we want to hash it out and have a discussion, because everyone learns that way. Make sure to like and subscribe as well. We got loads more content like that coming soon. See you guys next time.